Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second part of our presentation about the new code, the 2025 Code of Points for Men's Artistic Gymnastics. We're going to talk about the rest of the apparatuses that we didn't talk in the first presentation. We're going to start with rings. We're going to talk only a little bit on Bolt. There's not much I can tell you about Bolt. And then parallel bars and high bar, which are two events that have a lot of changes, and we're going to take a lot of depth in the discussing of the changes. So let's get started. We're going to start as we did on the other events. Steel rings, the element groups, they are really the same. There are no changes like on floor. Group 1 are the swings, Group 2 are the strength elements, Group 3 are the swing to strength holds, and Group number 4 are the dismounts. We're going to start to talk with the execution. We already talked about this in the general part, but we are going to remember that the angular deviations on strength holds and the angular deviations of the shoulders and body on swings to holds on steel rings have changed a bit. Now the small error is considered from 5 degrees to 20 degrees. That means there's a tolerance from 0 to 5 degrees for a no deduction to be given. So the small error is up to 20 degrees, then more than 20 and less than 45 degrees, or up to 45 degrees is a 0.3 mistake, that's a medium error. And a large error is when the deviation is over 45 degrees. We're not going to show examples of this. I think rings execution is a bit difficult, and I don't want to sound like I think this, maybe someone else is right and deducts something different. So we're going to stick more to the difficulty and really the execution. This is the major change on the rings. The rest of the criteria that we know so far is still going to be valid for the next cycle. We're going to talk about some other things that are important. Element group 2 and 3 elements, the gymnast can only do 3 in a row, and then he has to separate the sequence by a B element from group number 1, which also has to be inside the top 8 elements in this case. So this hasn't changed. We're just mentioning that as a very important part. Also, only one final hold position from group 2 and one in group 3 can be presented. That means a cross can be shown 2 times, one in group 2 and one in group 3. This is the same as the current code, so it's not a change. Press or swing to strength elements that do not receive credit because of a high entry angle. The final position can receive credit if it's performed correctly. This is also the same as this cycle. For example, a Honma to cross that had a very high entry over 45 degrees will not be given a D, but the final position can be credited. In this case, and using the new rules, the cross would be a C. We're going to talk about that later. Or a Ballantine type of press, which are the pulls from hang to different positions like inverted cross, swallow, support lever. If they are done with bent body or bent arms, or the shoulders going too way up from the rings, then the press cannot be recognized, but the final position, if performed correctly, can be given the value. So we're going to continue with the changes. Changes in group 1. Maybe this is the biggest change on rings. The Yamawaki and Jonathan have been decreased 1 letter. So Yamawaki is a B and Jonathan is a C. This is very difficult for the gymnast because there's only one element that has a D value, which would be the straight Honma swing to handstand, which is a very difficult element that not many gymnasts do it. But we're going to see later on that the MTC did another rule for this, and when the Yamawaki or Jonathan element is performed directly to a swing to a held handstand, then the element will be operated by one letter. However, the swing to handstand must be inside the top 8 elements. This means that a Jonathan swing to handstand, maybe a giant, it's a giant, then gets a D and a C. Yamawaki, Jonathan, and swing to handstand. In this case, the Yamawaki keeps its value; it's only a B. Then a D for the Jonathan and a C for the giant to handstand. You're gonna see in the last line in red, Jonathan Honma swing to handstand. This is not in the code, and I have not received a reply yet from the committee. Should be a D plus C according to the text. The text doesn't say directly to a giant, but a swing to a held handstand. And if you remember the elements that cover the special requirement on rings, which is the giant swing, the Honma swing to handstand is among them. Last but not least, another change is that the backup rise straddle L seat is removed from the code. This was an element that the gymnasts used for separating their strength sequences. So it's going to be they're going to have to use some other elements because this is no longer in the code. Well, we're going to talk about the changes. We're going to start with the element group 2. We already saw group 1. No elements from group 1 other than the ones we saw have suffered a decrease or increase in value. However, group 2 has many changes. The inverted cross is now a D, and the cross, a normal cross with body straight, with L cross or B cross, they have been merged into a single box, and they now have a C value. However, all the other combined elements that are used in strength, like for example an Assyrian to cross, they have kept their same difficulty. The cross by itself is the only one that has increased the difficulty to a C. Then the other elements that have been increased is the Tulloch 1, which is like Balandine to inverted swallow, a pull to inverted swallow, it's now a G. From cross or L cross, press to inverted cross in piked position, it's an E. And if done straight, it's going to be an F. These elements used to be one letter lower in the 2022 code. And the last element is an inverted cross, then lower slowly to inverted hang, and then like an Assyrian or a Felch, backward slowly to cross or L cross. This is called the Borovyov, which has always been a D, but in the last cycle, the Chinese gymnast Su presented it finishing in a L cross, in a B cross. It was given a value of E, but in this code, it is in the same box as the Borovyov and has been decreased by one letter to a D value. So that's why I am presenting it. More element group 2, more strength elements, which is the group that has the most changes. From swallow press to inverted cross, that's a very difficult element that used to be an E, it's now an F. The Carmona, which is a back lever, and then press with straight body to to inverted cross, which is also one of the highest difficulty elements, is a G. And then we have the 3 Balandine type of elements. I have included all 3 because only the pull to swallow and the pull to inverted cross have been increased, and the pull to support scale is always an E. Remember, these elements, I think they used to be all the same value, but now Balandine 1, that's the pull to swallow, it's an F, and the pull to inverted cross, it's a G. So we have already seen 3 elements with G value, the 2 pulls that go to inverted cross and the pull that goes to inverted swallow. So continuing, element group 3 has mostly no changes. Maybe what we can notice is the del shape, which used to be an element from group 1, is now on group 3, and it's a B. I think juniors will get benefit from this. And the dismounts, they always have the same value for this cycle, and only 2 dismounts have been changed. The Wittenberg, which is a triple salto backward, is now an I value. It used to be an H. And the double salto backward tucked with half or full turn, which has always been a C, but now the box includes 1.5 turns, which used to be a D. So this element, this dismount, has been decreased to a C value dismount. So this is the theory I have. So we're going to move to the examples. We're going to do 3 examples. We're going to do the first one. Remember, this is not necessary for you to judge. If you want, it's even better. Okay, we have a kip to a swallow from group 2, then a Nakayama, which also belongs to group 2, and then a group 3 element, a back of price to support lever or planche with legs together. Then he's separating his strength sequence with a giant swing backwards, a giant swing forward, then a Jonathan, Yamawaki, and a back of price to straddle L. We talked that this was no longer on the code. Then a press to handstand with straight arms and bent body, and then a dismount, a double with the stick landing. So we're going to see the analysis of this routine. So this particular exercise was not that filled with difficulty elements. Very good execution, by the way. So it's not difficult to get a start value with the new code. We see the first 3 elements that belong to group 2 and 3, swallow, Nakayama, and back uprise to planche. All of them are D's. Then they are separated by 2 giants, a Jonathan and a Yamawaki. Then the straddle back uprise to straddle L, it has no value, no longer on the code, and a press to handstand, and a E value dismount, which has a stick landing, so we have to give 0.1. So in the end we have 3 D's, we have 1 E for the dismount, 3 C's, and 1 B. Jonathan and Yamawaki were not performed with the giant swing, so none of them can receive an upgrade. The groups, remember, group 1 needs A or higher element. We have a B and a C. Group 2 was covered by D parts, and group D also by D parts, and the dismount by a E value element. So we have 2.8 difficulty value and 2.0 element groups, plus a connection value of 0.1 for the stick dismount. No neutral deductions because he has the giant, and a 4.9 difficulty value, start value. So the second example is going to be with more difficulty. Start the exercise with a backup price to inverted cross. It's an E from group 3, followed by the SU or Borovyov, which we talked about, was a D from group 2. Backup price to support lever. It's a D from group 3. Jonathan, Yamawaki, to a backup price to swallow, which is an E. So the Yamawaki's elements, they don't upgrade. A Honma to cross, which is good, it's a D. And then a press to swallow that has suffered no changes, so it's still an E from group 2. Giant swing backward, forward, and a dismount that cannot give a stick bonus because he had a step. So we see the analysis. The first element, it's an inverted cross, an E from group 3. Then he goes down and then rolls back slowly to a B cross. This, remember, used to be an E. It will be only a D now. Then a backup price to D to planche with legs together. It's a D from group 3. We have the Jonathan, the Yamawaki, that is not among the top 8 elements. The backup price to swallow, then the Honma to cross, then a pull to swallow, and the E dismount. It's very important that any kind of level that the gymnast you are judging, remember to double check two things: that the sequences, the strength sequences, are separated by a valid element. In this case, we have the Jonathan that is separating the first sequence of 3 elements. And the other thing you need to check is about the final position from each group. We have a swallow from group 3, and then we have another swallow that is from group 2. We have a cross from group 3, and we have another cross that is from group 2. Remember, the B cross or L cross or normal cross, they count as the same. The same goes to the planche with legs together or legs apart. In this case, it doesn't have another element, another similar element, and also the inverted cross has only one final position. So in this case, we have 4 E's, 3 D's, 1 C. All the groups are covered by 0.5, and the dismount is also 0.5. So the difficulty values add to 3.5 plus 2 points of the element groups, and we end up with 5.5. So also it's noticeable that in this case we have to leave out a giant. Why didn't we count first the giant? Because it would be more beneficial for the gymnast if we leave this Jonathan, because it's separating 6 elements from strength or strength to strength. So if we delete the Jonathan, all these 3 elements will not receive value, because remember, the gymnast needs to separate them. So in this case, it's better for the gymnast to leave out the giant and receive a neutral deduction for not having the special requirement, but still has a 5.5 start value. So this is important when we see routines that are not made for the new code, and we will be studying for our test. And so I think this is the last example we have on rings. Again, another gymnast from China that does a lot of difficult stuff. He starts with a Balandine to inverted cross, which is an upgrade to G. It's been upgraded to G. Then he goes down and does another Balandine, the Balandine 3, which has kept its value to an E, both from group 2. Group 3 element, E, was backup price to swallow. Now he has to separate the sequence. He does a dislocate to a giant swing backward, which is a valid element. Then an O'Neill, which is a double layout, a D element from group 1. Then an Assyrian to cross from group 2. Jonathan, Honma to cross. Jonathan keeps a C because no handstand was followed, and the Honma to cross is a D. Now he does a giant swing forward for a C, giant through handstand, and a double dismount in layout position, but no stick bonus. So let's see the analysis. So talking about the execution, the lack of extension at horizontal or uncontrolled regrasping after saltos. This is the same, but they joined both the deductions into a single line, but it's the same. I mean, you can take two deductions on this error. So we're going to start with the difficulty changes, and this is kind of confusing at first because it's very long. The special repetition on PBars includes many groups, and you need to pay the attention for what is the elements that can only be performed with restrictions. So the first part of the special repetition is as we know it. This has not changed from the 2022 code. Elements with saltos cannot include more than one body regrasp variation of the same element within the same element group. The highest element will be counted for difficulty, as it is in all the cases of special repetition. And the examples are the Morisui tuck and Morisui pike. Morisui tuck is the double back tuck from support to upper arm, which is a group 2 element, and the Morisui piked is the same element but in piked position. So only one of those can be performed in the routine. We don't see this often in this cycle. Maybe the last cycle and this current cycle, we don't see these many elements, but the problem is that these elements have been upgraded in difficulty, so we're going to see more of these elements. And if you go back 15 years ago or 20 years ago, these elements had more value than right now, so many gymnasts use them. So if we study old routines, you're going to see a lot of these elements, and in that time there was no special repetition restrictions, so gymnasts could do Morisui tuck, Morisui piked, and Belle, which is the giant to double back tuck, or Belle piked. They were performed very often, like in 2005, something like that. However, only one of these variations can be presented, and for example, the 1 1/4 salto forward straddle to upper arm, to bent arm support, or directly to hang. Out of these three, only one can be performed. And later the code says that for clarification, the following elements have been collectively included in this rule. And there are many numbers that if you just see the numbers, you will not know what elements they are talking about. I'm not going to say what they are, because we're going to see them in the tables in the next slides. Why do you see those 159 and 160 in red? Because the code says, if you check the last version from July, it is, I think it's a mistake. It says group 2 59 and group 2 60. But if you look the numbers in the boxes, there are no elements on that box. So I assume it's a mistake, and you were going to see in the next slide these elements they're talking about. 59 and 60 happen to be on group 1, not in group 2, and they are the pack nuke 1 and 2, which are the backup price to 1 1/4 forward straddle salto, either to upper arm or to hang. And the rest of the elements are elements that some of them are very risky, not seen so often, which is the giant swing with salto and salto with half turn to upper arm hang, which is kind of seen in current gymnastics, the same variation to a hang. And then the Torres, which is the same element, a giant swing, salto backward with half turn, but to support, so it's more difficult. And the element by the gymnast from Uzbekistan, I don't want to say his last name. It's a giant swing and salto backward straight with half turn. All these elements are just being grouped as a special repetition, but their elements are the same elements, difficulty values as we know now. And you can see in red, what does that mean is that they are not permitted for the juniors. Interestingly, the Torres, it is permitted for juniors. Most of the elements that are not permitted for juniors, they end in upper arm hang, but the Torres, a junior can do it. So we continue. This is a very long list of elements. We now see the list of the special repetition. For the giant swings, only 2 of these elements can be performed, and we have the giant swing to 1 bar followed by Healy, giant swing with Diamidov or with a quarter or half turn more, the giant swing with Diamidov to 1 rail followed by a Healy, the Dowser, which is a giant swing to Makut's upper arm, or the Baumann, which is a giant swing to Makut's to support. The values again are the same for all these elements. I bring them to your attention because this is the list of the special repetition for the giant swings on PBars to handstand. If the element is not on this list, then it is not included in the special repetition because it is not considered to have the criteria. For example, this next slide talks about the pitches through handstand. So the gymnast can do 2 of this and receive the credit, and still do a pitch to support, which is a lower value element, which is not among the special repetition list. So it's perfectly correct to do it. So we have here the pitch to handstand, either with or not with dislocation, the pitch with half turn or 3/4 turn. I think this is very important to remember. The half turn or 3/4 turn are in the same box, and they have an E value, and this is very important because I was talking that we need to study very old routines, and back in that time these were separated boxes. So we may see a pitch with half turn and a pitch with 3/4 turns in the same exercise, and we will have to be careful not to count both of them. The pitch full, the pitch 1 1/4, the Chiarlo, which is the pitch to 1 bar followed by a Healy, the Yamamuro, which is very difficult element, pitch to Makut to support, and the 3 last elements are the ones that are performed with 1 bar to the side, the shoot up with half turn, the shoot up with 3/4 turn or half turn, and the Malone, which was introduced at the end of the last cycle in the Olympic Games, which is pitch to handstand on one rail and then fall back with a quarter Healy. All this also keep their same values. So so far we've seen a lot of elements, but no changes of value yet. So after we talk about the special repetitions, we're going to talk about the upgrades. So again, another list of special repetition, and now we see the list for the front prices through handstand style elements. Again, only 2 of them can be performed or can be included in the difficulty score, and these are very difficult elements: the forward uprise with half turn to handstand, the front uprise to stutz, front uprise to stutz with a 3/4 turn to 1 bar, or only with a quarter turn to handstand, but followed by a keep on 1 rail. This is 2 elements in the same box that have the same value. They have a value of F. Then forward uprise to Makutsu upper arms or to support, which is the Solakidis one, which is a G, which it's seen by some of the top gymnasts now. The CoP tune, which is a back toss with a quarter turn to 1 rail, but goes to handstand, so enters into this description. And the Richards, which is a front uprise Diamidov, and the Solakidis 2, that it's a front uprise to Diamidov and a quarter. Again, all this have the same values as we know from this cycle, and they can be performed only 2 of them because of the special repetition restriction. So I think this is another list. So we start with the upgrades. Now I think that was it with the special repetition, but we start with element group 1, which is the upper arm, the Dimitrenko, which is a front uprise to double back tuck, used to be an E, and or now it's upgraded to an F, and the same element performing a pike position, it's G element. Why do I have this 2 marked? Because I think these are elements that the code doesn't mention, and they are elements with saltos that can only be performed 1 of them within an exercise. However, I cannot make sure that that is correct. We need to see what the FIG says about it, because this is not an example included in the code. It would be very difficult for a gymnast to do both of them in the same exercise though. And group 2, we have another upgrade for a very difficult element, a back uprise and double salto forward tucked to upper arm hang. It's a very difficult element. It's now F element. So remember, anything that's not on the code, I cannot tell you it's sure to be correct. So we need to have a clarification to have a correct answer. More upgrades. Now we're going to group 2, the Morisui and the Morisui piked, which is called Juan Li Ping. These are E and F, used to be D and E. I don't have this marked with dots because these are included in the variations. Only 1 of them can be performed in the exercise. However, the Suarez and the Coavita, which are 1.5 backward saltos, the Suarez half turn to upper arm hang, and the Coavita is a double back salto with half turn to upper arm hang. I think only 1 of them can be performed. And also the Suarez appeared as an E in the April version. In the July version it says it's a D. I already asked the MTC and they said it's going to be kept as a D. So I can say that because I already asked for this. And on group 2, maybe the most important change is the downgrade of the Heelys. The normal Heely we know as a D is going to be a C. The Heely from 1 bar is going to be a D, not an E anymore. And the Heely to upper arm hang used to be a B, now it's an A. And if performed from 1 rail, from a minimum B element precedent, it's going to be a B. So this maybe this is the biggest change on the difficulty, because it's a very common element to be performed now. We continue with element groups, elements from group 2. This is an upgrade also. Half swing backward with half turn hop to handstand used to be a B, now it's a C. And if performed with a 3/4 turn to 1 bar, it's a D. And the Gatson, which we all know, but it's not performed so often, it's a D, and it's going to be an F. Is 1/4 turn, additional turn is performed, which is the Gatson 2. These 3 elements that continue, they are the same elements, the same value as we know, but I have included them because it's the 3 elements we were talking at the start of the special repetition. The Sasaki, which is a 1 1/4 straddle forward salto to hang. It's performed to upper arm, it's a D, and it's performed to support with bent arms, it's an E. So out of these 3, only 1 can be counted for difficulty. And double salto forward tuck to upper arm hang, it's a very difficult element, it's an E, and an F if performed in piked support. These 2 elements used to be performed also many years ago, so maybe it's we need to check the old videos from their routines. More upgrades. Now we go to group 3, the Belle, which was performed by this German gymnast. It's a giant swing to double tuck to upper arm hang. That's now an E, it used to be a D. And in piked position, it's an F. This is included also in the list of restrictions that only one of these positions can be presented. The Quintero, which is a double back tuck with full turn, now it's an H, it used to be a G. It's a very difficult element, crazy element. And the Tanaka, which is also a very hard element, but we see it quite often from the top gymnast, which is a giant swing with half turn and 1 1/2 salto forward tuck to upper arm hang. That's the Tanaka, it's a G. And the newer version of this in piked position is now an H, which is called the Esparza. So both of them are very difficult and have been upgraded. And last but not least, the elements from group 3 also, the Peach with back roll with half turn, which is in tucked position, which is called the Gagnon from the Canadian gymnast. It's been downgraded to a B, and if performed in straight position, it's a C. These are elements that are not commonly seen. And about the dismount, the big change is that the front full in straight or piked position, it's now a B. It used to be a C for a long time, and it's a C only if performed with 1 1/2 turns. And 2 additions, which from elements. This element was presented this year. The Alvarez is from hang on the end, a giant to double back layout. It's an E. and also this last element is a from hang, a giant swing to a triple back tucked. It's a G. This element doesn't have a name. It was performed this year, but the gymnast couldn't land it on his feet, so no name was awarded. So I think we are done with the theory, with the PBars, and we are going to go to the practice, which is going to be very interesting. So we are going to start with the first example. These are, you can already see, these are all the routines. The gymnast starts with front uprights to handstand. We're only going to talk about the difficulty. And we see a Dimitrenko, which has been operated to an F from group 1, remember, not group 2. Then the Tanaka, remember, it's a G from group 3. He did the straddle cut with bent arms. Then Juan Li Ping, it's a Morisui piked from group 2, an F. Then a pitch half from group 3. A pitch to handstand, a D from group 3. And then he does a Belle piked from group 3. There are many elements of this kind in this routine. We're going to see how many of them can enter into the difficulty. We saw the Babsar from group 3 and a Tippelt from group 3. A Healy, remember it's a C from group 2 and not group 1. And a double pike dismount with no stick value. No stick bonus, I mean. So when we see the analysis of this, it's very interesting because we have many special repetition to be taken into account, but I think in this case everything looks good. We have the Dimitrenko. There is no Dimitrenko in pike position performed. Then he did a Tanaka, which is not under any list. Then we have a Morisue piked, it's an F. The next element piked, it's a Belle, so it's from group 3, so these two are in piked position, but they can be included. We have two pitches only, which is correct. We have a Babsar and a Tippelt and a Healy, which is C. I have crossed out the Tippelt and the Babsar, not because they are not recognized, but if you count, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 elements already from group 3. So the 5th and the 6th can be counted into the difficulty value. So we delete this and we can include the C value Healy. There was no stick dismount, so there are no connection values for that, and the dismount group is only 0.4. The rest of the groups are okay. We have a high elements for group 1, for group 2, and group 3. So in the end, we have a 4.1 difficulty for a 6.0 start value with 1.9 groups total. So this is a very high start value for a exercise that includes only 8 elements. And you see this was from the Rio Olympic Games, which was quite long ago. So we continue with example number 2. I have, I think, 5 examples on PBars because there are many special repetitions to be studied. So we have this gymnast from China. He starts with a pitch to handstand, then a front upright Diamidov to a Belle piked. He has a problem, but the recognition is okay for the Belle piked. Then a Dimitrenko in tuck position. And then another Belle in tuck position. A Morisui piked. and a Morisui talked. So in this case, we're going to have to leave out the Morisui talk because it's special repetition. We have a Healy. Remember, it's a C now for group 2. Then the straddle cut with salto, and the dismount, which has a stock landing. So we need to award the stick bonus for this gymnast. So if we see the analysis, we have the pitch to handstand. There are no more pitch to handstand on this element in this exercise. We have a front uprise to handstand and the Amidov. There are no other elements with that. Remember, these 2 elements have special repetition, but there are no any more elements in this routine. Now we have a belly piked and we have a belly tucked. So in this case, we need to leave out the lower value as well as the Morisue piked and the Morisue tucked. We need to leave out those 2. And the Dimitrenko, which has no special repetition in this exercise. We include the Healy. We will include the forward somersault with straddle cut, even though it can be questionable. The grasp was very rough, but I think it's okay to recognize. And dismount, which is a D, plus the stick connection value. We have 1.9 element groups and 3.8 difficulty. All the groups are okay. Element group number 1 has high elements, high difficulty elements, as well as 2 and 3. So in the end, the start value is made up of 3F, 1E, 3Ds, 1C, 1.9 element groups, and 0.1 stick bonus for a start value of 5.8. So that's the example number 2. We move to example number 3. We have a pitch to handstand, a pitch full, an F, then a pitch to 1 bar. There is repetition, basic repetition, and then we have a pitch with 3/4 turn, a giant with a 1.5 Diamidov, a giant full, and another giant. So the giant is also special repetition. We have the Dalton or Harada, I must correct. Then the Stutz to handstand and a double front dismount, which is also good for stick bonus. So the analysis of this routine is going to be very interesting because we have many pitches. We have the pitch to handstand, which is a D, and the pitch to 1 bar, which is a D also. It's a repetition, it's a basic repetition, but in this case we count out both of them because we have an F for the pitch full and we have an E for the pitch and 3/4 turn. So then we have the 3 elements to handstand in giant swing, the Amidov and the half and the giant full. So we count out the giant, the normal giant. Then we have an element from group 1, which is a front uprise to back somersault with half turn. We need to include another element from group 1, a front uprise, then a Stutz from group 2, and the dismount, which is an E with stick bonus. So we end up with 2 Fs, 3 E's, 1 D, 1 C, and 1 B. We're at 3.6 total. And in this case, we have group 1 with a D and an A, so we can give 0.5. But if you notice, group 2, we only have the Stutz, which is a C. So in this case, we can only award 0.3 for the group 2. Group 3 has many difficult elements, so we have 0.5, and the dismount is 0.5. Total groups is 1.8, and there's a stick bonus that is not included in the table. I apologize again. The correct start value should be 5.5 because the stick bonus, the dismount was stuck, so we need to give this stick bonus. Sorry for that mistake. We're going to see example number 4. Again, a very old old routine. In this case, the gymnast starts from the front upright straddle cut to handstand from group 2, pitched with 3/4 to handstand, a pitch, and a pitch half. Then a belly in tucked position, tippled, which has a stop but still recognized. Then we have a Healy and a half turn hop, which is a C now from group 2, stoots to 1 bar, straddle forward somersault to support, and a straddle cut, and a D dismount for a double pike with no stick landing. So this routine also has things to discuss about the special repetition. We start with a B element, which in the end cannot be counted among the top, and this was the only element he had from group 1. Then we have 3 pitches. We need to leave out the third one, but maybe not because of special repetition, but rather basic repetition. Remember that the pitch 3/4 and the pitch half is in the same box, so both of them cannot be performed in the exercise. So you could have said, why didn't you leave out the D pitch? And the reason is that this is not special repetition, but it's a simple repetition. Then we have a belly tucked. No other element in similar position was performed. We have a tippled, we have a C Healy, we have this C half turn, which is an upgrade, but in this particular case we cannot include it in the top 8. Then we have a stoots to 1 bar, then we have the forward somersault to support, and the dismount, which had no stick bonus. So in this case we're going to talk about the groups first. There is no group 1, so 0 for group 1. Group 2, he has a D element. Group 3, he also has a D element, and a D element as a dismount, so 0.4. So element groups is 1.4. The difficulty is 3 E's, 4 D's, and 1 C for a 3.4 total and a 4.8 start value. So it's interesting routines, an old routine. And the last example we have on PBars. We're going to see what we can learn from this routine. He starts from the side. He's going to do a pitch to handstand, maybe a style element. He does a pitch to handstand, which is a D from group 3. Now he's going to do a front upright with diameter and a half, front upright to stoots, front upright to diameter. We already have 3 elements from the same special repetition group, and we still have a 4th one, which is a Solakidis 1, a G. Then we have a Makuts from group 2, a Healy, a C from group 2, front upright to forward somersault, it's a D from group 2, diameter half from group 2, it's a D, and his dismount, a double front with half with step on the landing, so no stick bonus. So we're gonna see how this start value has been analyzed. We have the first element, which is the only one from group 3, it's a D, and then we have 4 elements in a row from group 2. we have to leave the two E's and only leave out the two E's and remain with the F element and the G element. Then he has an E, a C, and a D, and another D from group 2. So and a dismount, that is an E value. So actually the groups are okay with 0.5 each because he has D or higher for all the elements. The dismount is 0.5. We only can count 1 G, 1 F, 2 E's, 3 D's, and 1 D. 1 C, sorry. This adds to 3.8 and ends with a 5.8 start value. So the interesting part of this routine was the front uprise to handstand type elements, which they are restricted to only 2 of them. So with this we end the parallel bars, and we are going to discuss about the high bar, which is the last apparatus we're going to talk about on this presentation. Also, we are starting the last event, which is high bar. We're going to start with the element groups, as we've done with all the other pieces. Group 1 is the long hand swing. Group 2 the flight elements. Group 3 the in-bar and adlers. And group 4 are the dismounts. So you can see there are no changes in the element groups. However, we're going to start with the execution for the high bar, because this is where some changes have been done. Remember that the last cycle, I'm talking about the 2017 to 2021 cycle, we used to have 2 tables for deductions. This cycle we only have 1. This had the job for the judges maybe was easier, but it was harder for the gymnasts because they received harder deductions from us. So the MTC decided to go back to 2 tables, and 1 table is for the adlers, the stalders, the endos, and the half turns, and similar type of elements. I call this the 15 degrees table because the tolerance is to 15 degrees. Remember, the handstand in dynamic elements can have a tolerance of plus or minus 15 degrees. However, the other elements that are performed in the high bar are the turns to mixed or L grip, the quast and flying elements. These are turning elements, and the tolerance is a little higher, up to 30 degrees. That's why I call this the 30-degree table. So up to 30 degrees no deduction, 0.1 for up to 60 degrees, up to 90 degrees is 0.3, and more than 90 degrees, that means that's under the horizontal line from the bar, it's also 0.5 and no recognition. This is quite hard to apply during practice, so we're gonna see a video I have made. You can check my other videos in the channel that are similar to this, and this has been updated to the new rules. So we're gonna see the video. We're gonna see a lot of examples first. This video is maybe good that you, after practice on your own on this part of the video that has no analysis, no solutions, and we change the gymnast, and he does a mix in turns to L grip or mixed grip or just endos and half turns, and after about 12 or 13 cases are presented, then we change the video for the with the tables, comparing with the tables what was the deduction that is correct to take. We see Adlers, we see half turns, and now we're going to see the solution. This first element was a half turn, so we used the 15-degree table. No deduction for this gymnast. He does now an Adler, and you see that the table changes, but it's also no deduction. Very, very good execution from this gymnast. We have an Adler again, up to 15 degrees. Remember that the element finishes when the second hand regrasps. This is an endo, then a half, a full turn. This is a 0.1 deduction that currently is a 0.3. 0.1 deduction on this half turn. It's a little bit low. We have a kip with half turn to 0.3 deduction because it's up to 60 degrees in this case. Then we have a Stalder with half turn for 0.1 because he goes into L grip. Endo, which goes into the vertical. The endo is okay. Then we have the full turn to L grip or mixed grip, which is deducted by 0.3. This used to be 0.5. Then a half turn that is correct with plus or minus 15 degrees. An Adler again to under grip, 0.5. In this case the shoulders are very low. And again another Adler, which is very low, but none of them fall into the category of not being recognized. So this is a good practice. We're going to continue with what's new on high bar. The connection values have changed a bit. We still have flight to flight or element group 2 to element group 2 elements. A C plus D or higher is 0.1. A D plus D is 0.1, and a D or higher plus a E or higher element, it's 0.2. No more C plus C, so we have to be careful because some of the current routines have C plus C, but in the 2025 code that's not a connection value. What's new is that now the flight elements can be connected to not only to group 3 as it is now, but also to group 1. So D plus D or higher get 0.1 and D plus E or higher get 0.2. And again, some of the old routines, we're going to see some of them in the examples, they use these connections. Special repetition, well, it's not changed that much. Two other elements and one grip variation of the same element. This is the same as we know, the Rivalco to L grip or the full turn to L grip, and the Rivalco mixed or full turn to mixed grip. Only the highest value element is the one to be counted. What's new, it's about the flight elements. Only two of the following can be performed: Tkachev and Piatti. Kovacs, that includes the Gaylor 2 type of elements. Now we include the Ginger, Jaeger, Markelov or Yamawaki type of elements, and saltos forward over the bar, like the Pagan type of element. This is new, more restrictions. And also new is that a fifth flight element can be performed if at least two flights are connected. Remember that in all the apparatuses, the element groups can be no more than 4. But on high bar, there's a special rule that 5 elements from group 2 can be performed if 2 of them are connected. However, there cannot be a breach of the special repetition rule. That means that if the gymnast is to do 5 element groups, he cannot do 2 or more than 2 of the permitted ones. That means he cannot have 3 Tkachevs, for example, only 2, even if they are connected. So that's a difference with the current rule, where a third element is permitted if two are connected. So this is a change for the 2025 code. Another criteria that we are going to mention, but we're going to mention because it's not changed at all, but it's important that all the judges remember. L-grip and giants and Russian swings, the recognition, they have to go over the top of the bar. It's the same. Elements keep a single value, so an endo to the full turn to L-grip is a B plus C. The swings permitted at the start of the exercise are still 3, as in this cycle was introduced. Shoulders going up to the start of the exercise, it's considered a backup price, and this is in the last newsletter. It's still in effect for the new cycle. Yamawaki tolerance and Tkachev tolerance. Tkachev straight tolerance is for a body bend of less than 45 degrees. In the case of the Yamawaki, it's recognized as a bottom-in if the bent body is over 45. And in the case of the Tkachev, it's recognized as a C Tkachev. And the Adler's entry angles, they don't need to be performed from a handstand. They can be done from any entry angle. So I repeat, this is the same. This has not changed. So we're going to see the changes. All of the changes in high bar have been on the element group 2, element group 1, element group 3. They have the same values as we know now. All the changes are in group 2. We're going to cover the changes and the groups of the special repetition. We start with the Yamawaki group, where the Wallstrom, which is a Yamawaki with 1.5 turn, is the only one that has suffered an upgrade to a G. Then the Markelov and the Yamawaki, they are still a C. And remember, they can be performed with half turn also, which is something that is not done during this cycle. The next group is the Tkachev group. Out of the Tkachev, only 2 of them have been upgraded. That's the Liu Qin, which is a straight Tkachev with full turn, which is now a G, and the Suarez, which is an H now. It's a Piatti straight with full turn. That's a very difficult element. We also have another group, the Jaeger group. Out of this, there are some changes because the Jaeger, as we know it, with straddle legs or tucked, is a C, as we know, but the piked version is a D. The straight, it's an E, and full turn, the Winkler or the Pogorello, if performed from L-grip, it's a G, and an H if performed with 2 turns. So another of the groups, we have the Ginger group now, with the Ginger and Sapronenko, which is the Ginger from a Czech giant. This is a D. I don't know if the MTC will include the Delchev in this special repetition group. And we also have the Def, which is a G, which is the Ginger with 1.5 turn. Then the other group is the elements that have salto forwards over the bar. We have the Gaylord 1, the Pagan, the Kodinov. All of this have been upgraded. The Gaylord 1 is an E now, the Pagan is a G, the Kodinov is an H, it used to be a G. Gaylord 1 piked, it's an F, and the Maras, which is a Pagan piked, that's a double pike with a half turn over the bar, it's an H. So it's all of these have been increased in value. We go on with the COVAX. We're going to mention the COVAX as a special repetition group because none of the elements in this group have been upgraded. But the interesting is that the Gaylord 2 elements, remember, to be included in this kind of special repetition group. So we have the Gaylord 2 tucked as a D and the Gaylord 2 as an E. Remember, these are like a Ginger over the bar. Then we have the COVAX as a D, and all the elements in this family of special repetition keep their values. We will not go into all of them. You know the values, or you can read them in the table. So this finishes the theory of the high bar, and we're going to do a very interesting practice. So we go with the first practice exercise. It's a very difficult exercise from this gymnast from Colombia. We're going to see how his start value turns out to be. He starts with a half turn, back up rise half turn. Then he does a casino, which has not changed the value. It's a G from group 2. Then he does a COVAX into a Coleman, which is a D plus E. Then a Rivalco, not with a connection. Then an Adler full turn to under grip, no connection also. An Adler half connected to a Piatti, connected to a Tkachev straddle. Then a Stalder with legs together, which is a C from group 3, and the dismount, double with a stick landing. So important here is the COVAX. We have 3 COVAX, and we have to leave out the least value that is connected to another type of element. But remember, the restriction is only 2, so in this case it's more beneficial for the gymnast to keep the G, the casino, and leave out the D COVAX. He has a Rivalco also from group 1, and then he has these other 3 elements connected, and in this case everything is okay because he only has 2 elements from the same group, from the same family, let's say the Tkachev Piatti family. So he gets a D plus a C, so he gets connection in this case of 2/10, and the dismount was a stick landing, so he has 3/10 of connection values. All the groups are okay. The dismount is an E, so group 1, group 2, and group 3 have D and higher. And remember, group 1 needs any element to have the 0.5. So his difficulties, his start value is a 6-0 with 1 G, 3 E's, 3 D's, and 1 C, and 2 points in elements group. So it's a very difficult routine that still with the new rules has a very high start value. So we are going to move to the next example. This is a very interesting routine also. Gymnast starts with a backup rise, another half with no connection. Then he does a Coleman from the COVAX family, straight Tkachev into a Rivalco into a Pogorelov. So there's a lot of connections there. Then he did an endo, Stalder, Rivalco, Adler full turn to mixed grip to a Yamawaki, a Quast. Again, we're not going to talk about the execution, just the difficulty, and a double-double with a step on the landing. So this is a very interesting exercise because we see a connection with group 1, which is the Tkachev straight plus the Rivalko plus the Pogorelov. So that's a D plus D plus G. So that's 3/10 in that connection. Remember that we said that the elements kept their independent value, but there is a restriction, an exception, which is the Stalder-Rivalko, which is considered one single element. The Stalder-Rivalko 2L grip is an E, as we saw from this gymnast, and is performed to a mixed grip is a D. That is not new; it's already in use in this code. So after we see all the difficulty in this gymnast, we remember, let's check if he only has 3 elements from group 2. We are counting 1 element from group 1, and we are counting 3 elements from group 3 plus the dismount. So we had to leave the lower elements, but still he has all the elements covered with high difficulty elements. He has 2.0 element groups, and he has 1G, 3 E's, and 4 EDs for a 3.8 total, 3/10 in connections, and a final score of 6.1. This was a routine from the 2011 World Championships, so it was a long time ago, like 13 years ago, but still getting a 6.1 start value with current rules. So this is one to study. Remember, the connections are now with group 3 and group 1 connected to flight elements. Okay, the next example. There's a Yamawaki half. Remember, that's the same element, it's only a C. Adler half connected to a def, which has increased in value, so we're going to see that connection when we see the analysis. Now he does a Coleman from group 2, another Adler, in this case full with mixed grip, then Yamawaki, which is a basic repetition, endo to full turn to a L grip giant and a Russian giant, a Quast, and a double layout with full turn with 1 step. So we're going to see the analysis of this exercise. We see the Yamawaki, that's a C. Then we have the Adler plus the def, which is a G now, used to be an F, so he gets 0.2 in connection value for this connection. Then he has a Coleman, so there's no special repetition breach in this exercise for the flight elements. The Adlers are okay, he only has 2. The Yamawaki is ruled out, but by basic repetition as well as this endo. Then he has a full turn 2L grip, a Russian giant. The Quast is not not necessary for this gymnast. He has already 8 elements with equal or higher difficulty than the Quast. So in the end, he has 1G, 1E, 3 Ds, and 3 Cs. So that's 3.3 difficulty and 1.9 element groups, because the dismount was a D. No stick bonus, but he has connection value of 0.2, so the start value is 5.4 for this gymnast. You can check later this routines, all the routines in these two presentations. Please let me know in the comments if you find any mistakes. The mistakes that I have found during the recording, I've already told you. It's been like 2 of them. So we move on to the next example, and this is another interesting routine. Starts with an endo full turn to L grip. Now he's going to do a double salto with half over the bar connected to a ribalco. That's another connection. Stalder ribalco, which remember is an only element. Then an Adler half and a Stalder with a full turn wrong way. We're going to talk about that in the analysis. A Suleiman, a Whaler, another full turn to L grip, a Quast, and the dismount. It's a triple tuck with a step. So this is another interesting routine for the new rules. And we can see the first element has to be broken into 2, a B and a C for the full turn. Then he has a G for the pagan and plus a D for the ribalco. Then he has a Stalder ribalco, then an Adler. And what do we have to do with this Stalder and full turn in wrong way? This was a rule from about 2 cycles ago that this type of elements will no longer be permitted. So in this case the Stalder is okay, but the full turn to L grip is not recognized. Then we have a Suleiman, a Whaler that is not in the among the top elements, another full turn to L grip, which is a basic repetition, and a Quast. So we have 3 elements from group 1, 1 element from group 2, and we have 4 elements from group 1, 1 element from group 2, and 2 elements from group 3, plus the dismount. The dismount is an F, so we can see we have 2.1 element groups. We give the connection values for the release plus the Adler, 0.2, and we have 1G, 1F, 1E, 2 Ds, and 3 Cs. So that ends with a 5.8 start value, which is also very high. That routine was maybe 16 years ago performed by the inventor of the pagan, that's hightest pagan. And so we're going to move to the last example. This is a routine from this year, but we're going to see how it works with the new rules. We have an Adler half connected to a straight Tkachev into a straddle and pike Tkachev. We're going to see what we do with those 3 Tkachevs. We're going to have to leave one of them out. Then he does a Casina, blinds change, now another Adler to mixed grip, and he does a Yamawaki with full turn, which is the Wallstrom, which is upgraded to a G now. Now a Suleiman, and he's preparing for his dismount, a full turn double layout with a step on the landing. So the analysis, we have D for the Adler plus a straight Tkachev plus a straddle Tkachev, and we have to leave out the third Tkachev because remember only 2 can be included. We have a Casina, which is okay, no special repetition, no other Kovacs here. Then he has another connection for an Adler to mixed connected to the Wallstrom. That's a very high level element, so it's a G, a D plus G. He gets 0.2 plus 2 other tenths that he had in the first sequence. Then we count the Suleiman and the dismount, which is a D. In this case, again, remember the element groups are 1.9 because the dismount is a 0.4. We have one element from group 1 which has a value superior to A. Group 2 we have 1G. Group 3 we have D, so we can award 0.5 on both of them and 0.4 for the dismount. So we end up with 2 Gs, the Cassina and the Wallstrom. We have 4 Ds for the Adler half, the Tkachev straight, the Adler to mixed, and the dismount. And we have 2 Cs for the one of the Tkachev and the Suleiman. In the end, we end with a 5.9 dismount. Again, a very difficult exercise and very interesting exercise that we have shown. Well, this ends the presentation. These 2 presentations were very, very long, but I think it's necessary to dedicate a lot of time to study the new rules. Any questions or any comments, any mistakes you find in these presentations, please let me know in the comments. I hope these are useful for you to study the new rules, and please remember none of the content of these presentations is official, and I'm sure some of the content is going to suffer changes after the Olympic Games in Paris. I'm sure the committee will give us some clarifications and maybe some changes before the Intercontinental course at the end of the year. Anyway, I wish you a good studying and good luck in your test and in your gymnastics, and thank you for being so patient on this very long presentation. So I'll see you the next time. Take care.